Good evening and welcome to a fresh edition of our Business Weekend business program, Capital Market Live on Channels Television. For the first month of November, I'm Laddie Williams, and as usual, we begin with a review of some of the major global stock markets performances for Friday. Let's see how your money performed. Last week, major equities markets around the world ended the third trading week of October mostly positive as the bourses rounded out a big week for central bank policy decisions and corporate earnings amid fears of rising interest rates. In the United States, stocks rallied on Friday but finished the week lower. Investors drew conflicting conclusions, but latest payroll numbers of 261,000 jobs market added in October for the future of Federal Reserve rate hikes. The Dow Jones Industrial Average gained 1.26%. The S&P 500 advanced 1.36%, while the Nasdaq Composite rose 1.28%. In Europe, UK's FTSE 100 gained 2.03%. The German DAX index jumped by 2.51%, while France's CAC index gained 2.77%. And across Asia-Pacific, markets in the region ended with mixed sentiment amid speculations about a potential China reopening. Zero-COVID policies persist. In Japan, Nikkei 225 dropped by 1.68%, while Hong Kong's Hang Seng Index surged by 5.36%, while China's Shanghai Composite Index jumped by 2.43%. And back home, for the local stock market, sentiments ended the first trading week of November on a positive note as the NGX All-Share Index closed the week with a 0.81% rise, while the market's overall value rose by more than 194 billion naira due to price increases in some bellwether equities. However, stocks' performance across the 5 key sectors of the NGX is mostly negative, as industrial goods counter recorded the only gain of 5.35%. Gain is largely attributed to the 8.84% advance of Dangote Cement's share price, which came among 20 gainers for the week. On the other hand, Chams Holdings Company led a pack of 42 other losers, while 94 equities remained unchanged in prices. Meanwhile, the shares of Access Holdings, FTN Cocoa Processors, and the Fidelity Bank were the most significant contributors to more than 1.41 billion shares traded this week. And at the unlisted securities market, activities ended the week negative as the NSD OTC Exchange Security Index recorded a 0.25% decline. At the same time, the market capitalization fell by 2.36 billion naira to close the week at 948.30 billion naira due to sell pressure by investors. Similarly, the total value of securities traded during the week decreased by 66.45% to 14.06 million naira, and the value against 41.93 million naira recorded in the previous week. Total volume of securities traded on the exchange also fell by 67.63% week on week to 341,550 units. Meanwhile, NASD PLC was the lone gainer with a 5.14% increase on its price. UBN Property leads 2 other decliners, down 9.82%, and was also the most traded security on the NASD OTC market this week. And now to our conversation now. We'll see how MSMEs can get access into the NASD OTC exchange. And to help us understand how, we have Zainab Babalola, Head of Legal and Compliance, NASD, joining us right here. Great to have you on the program.
Hi, Laddie. Great to be here this evening.
Yeah, so, the NASD OTC exchange, another exchange, getting a lot of attention, these days. And I'm wondering, how can MSMEs, get access to your exchange?
Okay, so at NASD, we have majorly 2 avenues of accessing funding on our market. We have our OTC market, which is mainly for public companies. So public companies who have unlisted securities, whose securities are not listed on any other market at the moment, can apply to the NASD for their shares to be listed and traded on NASD. The investors in public companies as well, whose securities are not traded on any other market, also have the opportunity to apply to NESD and say, you know what, I have securities in this public company, and even though the company isn't listed on any market, I want to trade my shares. And we provide a platform for these investors to come with the shares they have in these companies and trade them on our platform. And what we do is we find buyers for these securities and we trade them. For SMEs, we have what we call the NESD Enterprise Portal. And that is one way by which we match SMEs with investors. So in this situation, they are not trading their shares on our platform. We're providing them with a platform to be matched with investors who are willing to invest in their companies. And in that step, what we look for mainly are companies with high growth potential. So once we see these companies, we carry out a little bit of due diligence on them, and then we put them on our platform, find ways to link them with investors. So it's more or less a matching system, matching investors with high growth potential SMEs. So that is our next step.
And if I'm, an MSME trying to get, on the exchange, how tough is it? What are the requirements?
Well, okay, so first of all, you have to be in existence for at least 2 years. You need to be able to provide us with your financial statements for 2 years, and then we will carry out an initial due diligence on these companies, because we can't just put companies on our platform. We need to be able to vet the company. We need to be sure that the company is registered. If the company needs to be registered with any other regulator, we need to be sure the company is registered with those regulators. We need to look at the board, understand the board, what kind of company it is, what the share capital is. If there's a requirement for it to have a certain share capital, we need to ensure that the company has complied with the law as much as possible. And so and then what the company does is they get a due diligence analyst. Due diligence analysts are financial advisors, your lawyers, your financial advisors, and then they need to be in a position to package the company in such a way that investors will be interested. So when you're coming to NESD, we ask you for, okay, do you have your due diligence analyst? We need to see your documents. What documents do you want to pitch to prospective investors? So at the point in time when your SME is coming to NESD, you need to have, these documents in place, or at least be in the process and be able to provide those documents when we need you to provide them.
Do you have anything for startups? Because these days we hear, startups raising, record amounts, right now. Do you have any package for them?
Yes, it is our NESD enterprise portal as well. But because what I'll call it one of our watchwords is transparency and integrity.
Right.
So we have to we ourselves need to have confidence in the companies that we're putting on our platform. So if your company is just
startups
starting,
be kind of risky.
Yes, they're kind of risky. So we want to be able to provide investors with some track record. So if you're providing me with your financial statements for 2 years, I need to be able to at least see, that this company has growth potential. I need to be able to put something on my platform that I know that investors, would want to see and will be interested in. So we usually limit it to companies from 2 years plus.
Interesting. Let's look at specialized platforms for MSMEs. How many are they? Do you have others?
Yes, so right now what we have currently is the NASDAQ, which I just mentioned, as the NASD Enterprise Portal. We're also in the process of coming up with our private markets. Private markets is a market we're trying to create for private companies which have quite a number of shareholders, but not up to the statutory requirement, because the law requires public companies to have 50 plus. So if your company has about 30 plus shareholders and you want to be able to, trade those shares within a controlled market, it's something we're also coming up with, and hopefully by next year we should be able to run with it. And also that also provides investors in these small companies with access to be able to trade their shares amongst themselves.
All right. How do you see, the demand for companies to be listed, on the exchange? Are there any, hurdles that you see that's holding, companies, rushing into your exchange?
Okay, so one of the major, okay, so about a few years ago, there's a regulation of the SEC which states that all unlisted securities are to be traded on an exchange, right? But despite that regulation, we still notice that a lot of companies are not listed on our market and they are not listed on other exchanges. And we've seen that one of the major challenges is the first one being the listing fees. Some of them shy away from the listing fees, even though we try to make our listing fees as little as possible, just to encourage. It's very affordable, I can tell you that.
Okay.
It's very affordable. We try to make it as affordable as possible, just to encourage prospective issuers, so companies to come into our market, you know, and have their shares traded. That's the first challenge we see. Companies who have issues with the fee. They say, oh, the fee is expensive. That's the first. The second one is there are companies who actually are not aware that there's a regulation that says once you're a public company, the only way your shares can be traded is on an exchange. You shouldn't be trading your shares between yourselves and, you know, getting your company secretary or registrar to just, you know, adjust the share register and file at the CAC. That's not what the law says. The law says as a shareholder in a public company, those shares can only be traded on an exchange. So those are the two major issues that we find, the two major challenges we find with companies in adopting these regulations.
All right. What are the arrangements or your approach to the concept of crowdfunding? I know that has, you know, raised a lot of brows at this time.
Yes, it has. Okay, so basically what crowdfunding is just an alternate means of getting finance by which you get funding from many investors, and you pool these investments and fund a project or a company. A couple of years, NESD was at the helm of, you know, the crowdfunding idea. We pitched the idea to the SEC, you know, and we sought to get rules passed in that regard. But over the last 2 years, we realized that a lot of crowd-funded companies were getting into we're facing a lot of challenges. The challenges of not being able to pay returns to investors at the right time. And because we operate as a company with integrity, what we've done over the last 2 years is we do not carry out investment crowdfunding again. So investment crowdfunding is crowdfunding for companies to, for instance, a company wants to fund a farm in Kano, for instance, right? And then you crowdfund, receive funds, and then you pay it after a while. So we don't do that anymore. What we do now is donor crowdfunding. So you want to raise funds, in other words, GoFundMe for Nigeria. So you want to raise funds for your church. Your church wants to carry out a fundraising for a project. Maybe they want to build a new church, and then you ask your members, okay, let's crowdfund for this process. And so that's donor crowdfunding. Donor crowdfunding, you do not expect to repay the money that you're collecting. For investment, you're going to pay, and you pay with, you know, interest. With interest. But for donor, it's crowdfunding for a purpose. So right now we're focusing more on donor crowdfunding for specific projects, for charities, for there was a time we were in talks with the Lagos State government when they were thinking of crowdfunding for to rebuild Lagos after the COVID. Sorry, I apologize. After the NSAS incident in 2020, yes, right. Exactly, when a lot of buildings were vandalized and they wanted to crowdfund. They were thinking of crowdfunding, you know, to rebuild Lagos, in other words, but that is still within the, that's still... So
yeah, if you need any kind of crowdfunding, it's right to just come to the exchange there and just...
we have a platform for that. So we do donor crowdfunding.
And we know, you know, a lot of people have complained in the past of being scammed.
Exactly.
You know, by... So getting on your exchange and actually, you know, subscribing to crowdfunding any project there, they can be sure they will not be scammed.
They can be sure they won't be scammed, exactly, because they're doing it through a SEC-registered exchange. So there's nothing like, and because it's donor, you understand, it's not an investment. So once you put your money in, you know the money is going in for the project, and you're going to see there's
whatever they
usually
say they want to do, they will
exactly, and you see, you know, an indication, okay, of how much has been raised, just like GoFundMe, how much has been raised for the project, how much has been raised for the charity. You will see it there as
transparency.
Exactly, transparency.
Great. Well, we'll still have Zena Babalola still with us right here. She's head of legal compliance, NASD OTC. We'll go on a break now. When we come back, the conversation continues. Stay with us. Welcome back. Still watching Capital Market Live on Channels Television. Let's look at some in the news for the week. We see the Nigerian Exchange Limited set to host the 2022 edition of its Made of Africa Awards Tuesday next week in Lagos. A statement released, the NGX explained that the award is designed to recognize organizations and individuals within the capital market ecosystem that demonstrate exceptional performance in value delivery and sustainable impact, and act as key drivers in strengthening the Nigerian and African capital markets. Established in 2012 as NSE CEO Awards, the Made of Africa Awards offer winners a year-round marketing opportunity and a big morale booster for institutions and individuals who have made extraordinary contributions to the Nigerian capital market and exemplify the highest standards. And the National Insurance Commission has listed conditions under which payments of dividends to shareholders in insurance shares will be made. A statement from the insurance industry regulator listed some of the conditions, which include and explains that any dividend distribution shall be subject to submission of prior written application by the insurer and approval by the Commission. Condition by NICOM also mentions that it noted that all dividend payments shall be made from distributable profits, adding that insurer shall not distribute or pay any dividend to its shareholders if it fails to comply with Section 24 and 25 of the Insurance Act 2003. Non-payment of dividends by some insurance firms remain a battle. Shareholders who often express disappointment of a poor return on their investment in low-performing insurance companies. All right. Back here, we still have Zena Babalola, Head of Legal and Compliance, NASD OTC, and we've been talking about how MSMEs can get access into the NASD OTC exchange. And now we continue the conversation. So what arrangements does the NASD have in place that assures investors that they are safe?
Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, before, both on the OTC market and on NASDAQ, we take pains to vet companies that come on our market. So on the OTC market, we have a lot of requirements for companies. They don't just come to our market. We vet the number of years they've been in existence, the kind of company they run, who their directors are, the shareholding structure of the company. For the OTC, the companies on the OTC markets, we make sure that we vet them. We ensure that they send us reports, so their quarterly reports. We want to see them. Any event that is of interest to the public, we always ask them for it. And once this information is provided to us, we put them on our platform, we put them on our website so that the investors have access to this information. With respect to the NASDAQ as well, that's the enterprise portal. When the companies come as well, we carry out a due diligence in-house before we bring those companies in. And even when the companies come in, we also ensure that both the company and the prospective investor sign agreements, and that the investor carries out its own due diligence to its satisfaction before they proceed to investment, signing term sheets, and to investment. So we ensure that we carry out our own due diligence on these companies before we put them on our platform and before we get them involved in with the public.
That's a lot of work. I can imagine.
It is a lot of work.
All right, give us a description of the market, participants and the number of admitted securities on the NASD.
Okay, so our major market participants are who operate on our market are brokers mainly. So for you to get your securities admitted to our platform, you need brokers. Broker dealers. You must have a broker. Those are the most important market participants. We also have issuing houses and slash financial houses who package the deal. For instance, if you want to come on if an SME wants to come on the enterprise portal, you need a financial advisor to package your deal, make the company look good and attractive for investors. So our issuing houses, lawyers as well. We have lawyers on our platform who draft the necessary legal documents and ensure that everything is complying with the laws and set regulations as well. For the securities on our platform, we have about 45 securities. That's on the OTC market, about 45 companies. Some of them came in through company admission, which is the company comes and says, I want to list all my securities on your platform. And some of them came in through a shareholder-led listing, which is a shareholder comes and says, I have shares in this company and I want to sell, find me a buyer. So we just take just those shares, that particular number of shares in that company, we put it on our market and we find buyers for them. So we have about 45 securities currently trading on NSD.
All right, let's look at, let's imagine a time where, most youths are trading, on your exchange. What kind of regulation will we see, at such a time? Maybe you just go on your phone and trade on the NSD OTC exchange.
Okay, so the major regulation, we have our rules in place, right? We have rules in place, and youths trading on our platform, we have rules, regulations. Before you can trade on our platform, you need to register with us, right? So we're also in the process of setting up our mobile app, right, where this can be done on your phone. But even before you can get to that extent, you need to register with us. So at every point in time, we will vet the people who are in our ecosystem, from the investors to the brokers to anybody who wants to trade. Once you're going to be involved in our ecosystem, we will vet you because we are regulated, and we also have someone who are answering to, who is the SEC. So we need to be sure that everything is done above water.
Well, what kind of challenges do you have in enforcing your regulations?
Okay, so in enforcing regulations, the major challenge we have is, first of all, depending on which entity we're dealing with, a lot of them mention that they don't know what our rules are. They don't know, or they were not aware they were supposed to, comply with this, or they didn't see that it was on our website, So it's more or less a challenge of not knowing, not understanding. So to bridge this gap, what we do is, once a company securities are listed on our platform, we engage them. We have one-on-one sessions with them where we take them through what their regulatory obligations are, not just to us, but to SEC as well. For our brokers and other participating institutions, we also take them through what their obligations are to us and to the SEC, so that there's no excuse of, oh, I wasn't aware.
Ignorance is not an excuse.
Exactly, but at the same time, we try to be a little bit accommodating. So if you were supposed to submit something to me last week and you submit it to me this week, I will ask you why you're submitting this to me this week. And if you give me some reasons which are,
something reasonable,
then I'm fine with it. So it's not a hard and fast rule, because at the end of the day, we want to encourage all participants, both investors, both issuers, both everyone in our ecosystem. We really want to just encourage them to come into our market and be very active. So.
All right, before I let you go, now, which sectors do you consider the most attractive sectors for MSME investing?
I'd say the major two are agriculture and tech. Agriculture, because we all need to eat. Exactly. And tech is an industry which has just blown up and has attracted so much attention. It's seen quite a lot of investment, a lot of innovation. So many products are coming out in the tech industry. So something comes out today, tomorrow something different is coming out. Or if something different is not coming out, there's an improvement to the product that came out yesterday. So there's
just
so
like
much,
the fintechs. So.
Exactly. So there's so much interest in the tech industry, fintech, that industry. So I'd say those are the two major industries where there's a lot of attention.
All right, thank you so much. We're talking Zainab Babalola, Head of Legal and Compliance, NASD OTC. Thank you for coming, and
thank you for having
definitely
me.
have you sometime in the future.
No
thank you.
problem at all. Thank you so much.
All right, now, so that's the conversation there. See how MSMEs can actually get into the NASDOT exchange. Well, let's get an outlook for next week. Now, the CBN is set to roll over 193.03 billion naira worth of maturities at the primary market auction Wednesday, November 9th. Now, the T-bill secondary market activity is expected to be quiet as participants will shift focus to next week's NTB PMA. Yields expected to trend northwards due to anticipated squeeze in the system. For the bonds market, sentiment expected to remain bearish ahead of the higher inflation rate projection for October. And the equities market performance is expected to remain mixed as traders anticipate that investors may rotate their portfolios towards stocks with attractive dividend yields amid intermittent profit-taking activities. Analysts expect that investors will rebalance their portfolios based on assessment of corporate earnings released for the third quarter of 2022. However, the increased FIs may continue to constrain buying activities. And that's the show for today. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Ladi Williams. Bye for now.